Hi, everyone. Welcome to Product School. Thank you for tuning into today's webinar on a PM's Guide to Influence Without Authority. I am Anuja More and I am a product lead at Meta. I live in the Bay Area and have been in product management and product marketing roles for over 10 years now. I started my career as an engineer and moved into product. And I've managed products in cloud, AI operations, analytics, and now into social tech. I currently manage WhatsApp's business platform at Meta, helping build new experiences for businesses to connect with the millions of global WhatsApp users. All right, let's get into it. So, if you take a look at what it takes to become a successful PM, it's mostly a combination of the hard functional skills and the more intuitive soft skills. Skills such as discovery, gathering data insights, road mapping, prioritization, all of these are examples of hard skills that product managers need to do their job well. And the hard skills are almost a given. And I feel as an industry, we have a lot of resources available online or in courseware to train aspiring PMs on these hard skills. But what differentiates a good product manager from a great product manager are the soft skills. And these are the way you go about your role to get things done. It's about how well you communicate your roadmap or priorities across the board. It's about how you manage up to your executive leadership. And when it comes to these soft or stylistic skills, the most important and probably the most challenging is the ability of a product manager to influence without authority. A PM role requires you to influence various stakeholders you're working with. But the reality is that PMs have very little power over this because your stakeholders don't report to you. You do not have the authority to tell your stakeholders, here's what you need to do. And this often makes product managers feel not appreciated, or that the decision making is too slow, or that there are too many cooks in the kitchen, and all your great ideas are falling flat and makes you feel less effective at work. So, then what do you do to be successful in your role as a PM? How do you master the art of influencing without authority? In today's session, we will go over 5 key principles to master the skill of influence without authority. The first principle we look at is this concept of not pursuing having authority, but fostering within yourself a credibility mindset. Secondly, and most undeniably, how to build trustful relationships across all levels of your company and organization. We'll chat about how important it is to frame a compelling argument for your ideas and how important it is for you to convert that idea into a shared vision for your stakeholders. We cannot talk about decision making and influence without speaking about processes and how you can leverage the right forums to cut through the chase and noise and get alignment for your ideas. And lastly, we'll speak about the power of a clear narrative and principally striving toward extreme clarity. The first thing toward driving influence is building credibility. And credibility is earned. Something almost like this phenomena of the halo effect, which is a type of cognitive bias in which our overall impression of a person influences how we feel and think about their character. And hence, the first principle is establish credibility rather than authority. This is more of a mindset than a rule. Remember that organization always comes first. People need to believe that you are willing to do the right thing for the group rather than pushing your own agenda. You need to get into the mindset of giving up ownership. Influence is about helping a group of people to solve a problem together. So give up ownership. Let it become a shared idea, even if you want to get buy in for your idea. And in order to influence others, you need to be willing to change their mind based on facts and not care about whose idea it is. Understand that organizations are human systems after all, who are trying to act rationally. It's all about people trying to make decisions based on facts and rational value points. And sometimes credibility is built by being honest and vulnerable. So, candidly share what you know and what you don't know. And there may be additional things beyond that you may need their help with. I'm not saying like do not lead with knowledge gaps too frequently, but do not hide them either. The fake it till you make it approach is the alternative here. And I prefer the authentic and humble approach personally. Authenticity and humility is frankly easier. It's you being you. And this will never let you down and will help you build those long term relationships and trust without running the risk of being found out in that faking it stage. When I moved from Meta to WhatsApp, I started working within the business integrity team. And despite having 8 years of product background, I had no background in trust and safety. And so I had to be comfortable with the fact that I am the newest to this domain and respect that others will likely have a far deeper understanding of certain subjects. By looking at the product roadmap the team was working on, pretty incremental features when there were some obvious gaps to solve for. And instead of quickly jumping in to propose the next big bets, I listened. I realized that there were frequent escalations from functional business partners about efficiency, turnaround times, and automation. I then supported to channelize that feedback, come up with trade offs for incrementally solving those issues versus solving for them holistically, and then communicating them to the functional business partners and having a plan to address those escalations. Listening first built my credibility and trust with engineering and functional stakeholders. It showed them I wanted to address their specific problems and challenges and not just impose my own ideas onto them blindly. And in all of this, I feel being persistent is the key. Don't stop at your first no. If you really believe in your idea, then keep at it. Now, credibility leads to trust. And you need to work your way up the trust perception hierarchy to truly be able to drive influence. Whenever you start new or join a new team, from being perceived as someone who cares and listens to becoming a thought leader, that's the trust perception hierarchy you need to traverse. Start with being someone who cares and listens. Show genuine interest in others' ideas, feedback, and challenges. Demonstrate empathy and understanding in your interactions. From here, you grow up to be perceived as one who understands and incorporates everyone's point of view. And that happens when you really strive to understand diverse perspectives and viewpoints, incorporate that feedback and ideas into the decision making process, and really value inclusivity and diversity of thought in your approach. Next, you want to become a collaborator, one who follows processes. And this can be done by fostering a real collaborative environment where teamwork is encouraged. This can be done by respecting established processes and guidelines while we work towards the common goals. Engage in open communication and constructive problem solving with your colleagues. And you gradually want to move your way up this trust model to be the voice of everyone in the room. Advocate for the collective interests and concerns of all stakeholders. Represent the diverse perspectives and ensure everyone's voice is heard and considered. Act as a mediator or facilitator in discussions to bridge the gaps and reach a consensus. And you truly reach a position of influence when you are perceived as a thought leader. Demonstrate expertise and innovation in your field and industry. Share insights, share best practices, and new ideas to inspire others. Lead by example and contribute to the intellectual growth and development of the team. Now, people can agree with you for many reasons. It could be either because they believe it is the right thing to do, because they think it's the best trade off among the tough choices, because either they think it's in the best interest of the collective group, or they feel inspired to agree with you. But I think the most important part here is people trusting you and wanting to work more together. So the key here is to build the bridges way before you need them. Having a solid foundation of relationships and a strong reputation helps with influencing people. I remember one mistake I did in one of my roles in Meta was building a solid foundation with my close team, like my eng team, my PMs, UXR, but not enough with our regional sales and partnerships team. And I got to speak, for example, to a regional head for the first time during a product escalation, which didn't quite set me off on the right footing. So don't wait till you need to have those tough conversations with someone to start talking to them. Now, before we proceed with our principles, let's look at a typical PM's organizational influence map. Who are your key stakeholders? And here's how you take what I call a concentric circle approach toward building credibility, trust, and eventually driving influence. As a PM, start with your team, your product, and this is like your product designers, engineers, data science, UXR. This is your core team, and they are more likely the co-creators of your idea. Take that idea, brainstorm with, say, your 10-15 person engineering team, then share it with the bigger team that can give you feedback. Understand that feedback and incorporate it into your idea. Then comes the next concentric sphere of influencers. And these are ones who want to be kept abreast, not in the room during brainstorm, but those who you want to keep up to speed via email or via Slack. And these are your counterparts in product marketing, in support, in legal, in operations, so on and so forth. And you're not necessarily explicitly soliciting their feedback, but you know that these people can be your allies to approve or support your idea with the decision makers. And hence this sphere is called influencers. Then come the approvers that are part of your product reviews. This is your senior management. This is your VP of product or the engineering director. And one personal learning here before you get in front of the sphere of approvers during product reviews is this concept of nimawashi, which in Japanese business is the informal process of laying the foundation for some proposed change or project by talking to these people concerned and gathering support and feedback before you even formally propose or make a formal announcement. And so, warming up the room when you get in front of these approvers is really crucial. Don't go in blind. Incorporate all the feedback well before the review. Before you go into any meeting, you should know where the decision is leaning. I remember my very first executive review at Meta was a disaster. Before joining Meta, I was leading a suite of analytics products at a networking company, and I had a team of, say, 30 engineers, some design, and I reported into the VP of product. And the structure was extremely tight, such that everyone was involved in pretty much every step of the idea from concept to launch. At Meta, it was a much larger org, and my approach toward the very first product review was, let's get everyone in the room and hammer this out, which caused a lot of decision churn. And that's something you should avoid as you go through driving the influence process across these spheres of influence. Now, how do you tactically go about this? And what are some of the tools that you can use? The next set of principles are more tactical than philosophical. The number one tactical skill in driving influence is framing. How does one make a compelling argument? What is the science behind this? And step number one is identifying who your audience is. Again, going back to our spheres of influence, is it the product designer I need to convince on design A versus design B? Or is it the VP of product who I need to convince to greenlit my project? For example, this froyo contains 20% fat. No, no, wait, this froyo is actually 80% fat free. Choose what your audience sees and frame their impression by focusing attention on very specific elements. As an example, consider you want to position taking up something big and risky versus fixing incremental bugs. Firstly, acknowledge that there is risk in this moonshot idea that you're proposing and reframe it as ambition. Allow it to become a shared idea, even if you want to get in buy-in for it being your idea originally. And it's bound to happen more than often that your idea may not get the support it needs. And in that case, change the mindset to get support for your idea. There is some key insight you are seeing that others are not yet. And in that case, you do what I call as reverse engineer the idea. Start with stated end goals of the key stakeholders we are trying to convince. Reframe your ideas in the potential way that solve for the goals. For example, your VP of product states every half what their big goals are or what his biggest priorities for the company are. Reposition your product as solving for the specific goals of the org and put it in the language that they're going to be excited about. It's all about laying breadcrumbs so people discover the idea themselves. A recent example at Meta, where we had a proposal of building a user control that allowed a user to block or report a message that they receive from businesses on the platform. And now that's pretty disruptive in terms of a user action and also had a negative revenue impact. However, by tying it well with our business org's goal for that year, which was reducing unwanted user experience, we were able to get the buy in and greenlit our proposal. So, recast your proposal in terms of Project X and how your project applies to what the goals of the org or business are. And this fundamental ability of being able to make a compelling argument, of framing and reframing, is what will enable you to take your ideas ahead. Now, decisions are all about people and processes. Effective processes create opportunities for individuals to express their unique perspectives, ideas, and concerns. Set up multiple modes for sharing feedback. Set up the right meeting etiquette. Encouraging open dialogue ensures that diverse viewpoints are considered, enriching the decision making and fostering a sense of inclusivity. Allow people to share their thoughts in multiple modes, either async via docs or in person in meetings. Ensure that everyone who wanted to had a chance to speak up in meetings. And sometimes this meant longer time or just follow up meetings. Set the ground rules for different types of discussion. For example, a brainstorming versus a decision making session so that people give the right type of feedback to others. And doing all of this requires enough lead time and detailed planning. And the approach should be having a clear list of decisions that you want to work through as a part of the strategy process and take them through the decision forums, whether it's small groups, large groups, async 101s. and use leadership reviews as a forcing function. Sometimes, to create a sense of urgency, it helps to have clearly scoped reviews as a forcing function to move towards decision making. Remember that leads at different levels are here to help you and your team be successful, so leverage them fully. Let's take that last line again. Remember that leads at different levels are here to help you and your team be successful, so leverage them fully. Now, processes need to be facilitated using the right set of decision frameworks. And here is just a simple example. You start with stated end goals of the key stakeholders we are trying to convince. And here again, bring that concept of framing and reframing. In case of conflict, goals is where you anchor on and come back to. Every decision is really just a set of options. So agree on the options you have. One tip here is having status quo as one of the options. And what that does is highlights the risk of not taking any action. Next, you agree on an evaluation criteria and agree on the evaluation matrix. These could be anything like feasibility or market potential, impact on user experience, or technical complexity, or even alignment with business objectives. And using this matrix, the trade offs become obvious. Now, I've seen people getting stuck on standard prioritization frameworks like value and effort matrix, Kano, RICE, or like simple cost benefit analysis. But whatever you choose, consider showcasing trade offs that are specific to your product or org goals and trade offs in your key metrics and counter metrics. And another tip here is to consider what your stakeholders stand to gain from going for option two over option one, but also consider what they tend to lose by choosing either of those options. And it's important to adapt and refine the framework based on the unique characteristics of your product, your market, your organization, and the metrics that matter to your product. The last principle on which your influence strategy hinges is your narrative. Now, narration is an incredible tool. It could include a couple of sub tools within it, such as using data to make your argument more compelling. And this data could be various types of data. It could be an A B test to show the difference between control and variation. Sometimes data points could be in the form of social proof or citations from a customer or complaints or learnings from a user study or qualitative user feedback. Identify what form of citation is going to be most effective to convince your audience. Hard data or industry data or customer quotes, people respond differently to different types of data. And data and metrics can sometimes feel abstract and disconnected from the human experience. And that's where narratives humanize data by putting a face to the numbers, telling the stories of individuals or communities affected by the decision. And this emotional connection can make the decision more relatable and more compelling. Visual aid is another powerful tool. Supplement your narrative with visual aids such as charts, graphs, prototypes, and mock ups to illustrate key points and concepts. Visuals can really help stakeholders better understand complex ideas and concepts and enhance the impact of your narrative. And highlight the benefits and value. Emphasize the benefits and value that your product delivers to users, customers, and the organization. Paint a vivid picture of the positive outcomes and result that stakeholders can expect from supporting your product decisions. Incorporating narrative into decision making process can really enhance the quality, richness, and depth of decisions by complementing quantitative analysis with qualitative insights and human perspectives. And by weaving stories into the fabric of decision making, PMs can foster a deeper understanding, engagement, and commitment among stakeholders, leading to more effective and sustainable outcomes. Now, in conclusion, I'll talk about some pitfalls in driving influence that cause a lot of decision churn. Going faster than your collaborators or stakeholders want to go, going slower than your stakeholders want to go, overlap in people's expectations or roles, not aligning across multiple levels of the org, or not involving all functions early, not having enough back channel input or having too much back channel input on what leaders' expectations and point of view may be. And another pitfall is partners really being surprised by the content when it comes to these leadership reviews, or even like not knowing what your stakeholders' recommendations are. And hence following these five key principles of having a credibility mindset, building toward trusted relationships before you even need them, and climbing up the trust hierarchy, the science behind understanding the science behind framing and making a compelling argument, leveraging processes and frameworks, and building a clear narrative with data points and humanized citations. All these tools will hopefully help you become the rockstar PM that you aspire to become. With that, I would like to thank everyone who's tuned in. Hopefully, this was helpful. Again, I'm Anuja More, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I also share a lot of my thoughts on product management on my Medium, and so feel free to visit it. Again, thank you for tuning in. Bye.